Welcome to Pnimis HaTorah, Parshas Vayeishev. We're holding Erev Chanuka Kamat. Tonight is Chaf Beis Kislev. Chaf Beis Kislev, a couple of days before Chanuka. So obviously Chanuka is in the air. Every Yontif has to have a Chana, especially Chanuka, which is a connection to such tremendous iris, right? Chanuka is a Yontif that sort of is it's a Yontif. It's a yontif of hashpos, is what it is. You know what I'm saying? It's just what is celebration? There's tremendous amount of shaf of ar coming down, and and the zchus to have all this ar that Chashmonaim had was the fact that they that they were ma'aseh nefesh, right? The world was in a terrible state, right? The Yevanim were having a tremendous impact and influence on Klal Yisrael. Klal Yisrael was literally addicted to their smartphones. And they were losing the connection, right? Literally, that was going on. They had their own, the download speeds were a little bit slower, but they were much more patient back then. The cars were slower. Everything was a little bit slower back then. The airplanes were slower, But that's what literally it was. They had all this programming going on, and everyone was sat there the whole day, like this, and they were mamash. It come out and went back to Toiv Avayu, right? We know that the Chazal tells in the pasuk of right, so the chayshach is Golos Yavan. Yavan is in constant chayshach. People are just mamish, like blind people walking around in the dark, not without any direction. The influence was so stark. How did the Chashmonaim have this chus to break out from this tremendous darkness, right, and bring all the ar of Chanukah into this world? They had to go all out. They pulled out all the stops. They're willing to be ma'aseh nefesh. And their message was what the message that they followed, putting their lives on the line was that the world is not a world without the Ar of the Rebbeinu Shalom, without the Rebbeinu Shalom. Mela, it's not kedai to live without going all out and putting everything on the line and be talking to Kadosh Baruch Hu. And Kadosh Baruch Hu wants us to do this because this is what's necessary. So Mela, the Achana of Chanukah back in the day of the Nes, right? The Nes Chanukah was the Mesiras Nefesh that the Chashmonaim had. Meil la'achana for Chanukah, our achana has to be, if you want to be zeicher the tremendous iris of Chanukah, our achana has to be a similar type of idea, which means Mesiras Nefesh. What does Mesiras Nefesh mean? Mesiras Nefesh means doing what's difficult, right? Embracing the difficult, knowing that just because it's difficult, that should not hold us back. So those of us over here that were thinking about maybe we should finish Shas, but it's too difficult, Erev Chanukah, start thinking about Shas. Those of us think about getting up before 8:15 because it's difficult, right? So say, you know what? Get up 7:15, and have a little more time to learn, etc. And I think that's the avodah of these days. To be makabel Mesiras Nefesh, not the whole America is sitting and trying to figure out how to get more and more comfortable. You have to get more comfortable. That's not only menucha, it's Parshas physical comfort, more comfortable shoes, more comfortable mattresses, more comfortable clothing, everything is more comfortable car, everything is just like comfort, the temperature in your house has to be perfect, everything has to be exact comfort, and that's a steer to Mesiras Nefesh. Mesiras Nefesh means that nothing matters other than that HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Ratzon is being done, and whatever I have to go through to get there is what I'm going to do. And I think just turning over these ideas in your mind, comfort is not what I want. Right, Kvayt Shemaim is what I want, and to dedicate my life towards my self-comfort is going to severely diminish my ability to be Marba Kvayt Shemaim, which Befrat needs Mesiras Nefesh, Befrat in this door. Yeah, the last week the Olam HaTorah brought me the Sefer Sechain. It is a Sefer that is written or based on the teachings and the writings of someone named Rabbi Shmuel Kraus, who lived here he lived in many kilos. He lived in London a certain amount, he lived in the United States, he lived in Williamsburg, he lived in Seagate, he lived in LA, he lived in some place called Desert Springs, I guess it's in Arizona. He went wherever he felt he needed to go for whatever reason he needed to go there. And big people are not afraid to make moves. Yeah. Big people are not afraid to make big moves. They do what they have to do. They're much more fluid than small people. Small people, they start off their lives in one place, and that's basically where they stay. This Shmuel Kreis, he was the Talmud of the Arpnei Yeshua, who was the Galant Rav, and he was mishamish by the Galant Rav, was a tremendous tzaddik before the war. He had a yeshiva that he was in, and he was very close with him. And he learned his derech HaChaim was very much impacted by the Galant Rav. Just a little bit about the Galant Rav. They bring down over the Galant Rav was killed with his kehila during World War II, and they bring down over here that when the Nazis were coming, so they gathered in the shul, and the Galant Rav said that the people were panicking and they were upset, and the Galant Rav got up there and said, this is our tachlis HaChaim. This is the ultimate tachlis to be Moshe Nefesh HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We have to be mekabel the ratzon. And they all started singing and dancing, and literally, when the Nazis came, they just had to they escorted out a Simchas Torah parade, and he says he heard after the war from someone who was by the station, one of the stations on the way that the train that these people were on the way to Auschwitz. He said when the train was passing through that station, you were able to hear the dance, the singing and the dancing going on inside the train. This is the personalities, the clarity that people in a matzah of mysterious nefesh, mamish were able to get. They're able to bring the aura of HaKadosh Baruch Hu into the mamish of chayshech, and where these people are nowadays, where the schad and the tikkunim that they made is obviously in the shire.
You see, you're supposed to say a bracha, no?
There's a bracha of Mekash Mebarabim. The bracha Tash Mekash Mebarabim.
When do you say it?
When does a person say it?
When does one say it?
I'm not sure. If the Shiloh was said b'Shem Machas, we don't say every day b'Shem Machas. It's a famous story with the Vilna Gaon, the Ger Tzedek. I think the Ger Tzedek asked him, "Do you say b'Shem Machas?" Because we don't find a takana in Gemara. We don't not machadish brachas. We do have it, and it's a suffix. When the more do you say bracha Hashem Mekash Mebarabim, right? So, but we don't. Most Sfarad doesn't say Hashem's name. Ashkenaz says bracha Hashem.
But it still says some say. It still says even in the Ashkenaz some.
Right. So let's say right because it's shilas. We don't typically have any nusach of bracha that we don't find in Shas. It's not so posh to say even bracha like Hanais and Le'av Kach is not found in Shas. Is the whole suffix whether it should be said. Arizal says Hanais and Le'av Kach. What do you say? And he's masber. The time behind it is he says that Hanais and Le'av Kach is like a bracha that is very similar to the bracha of Malbish Harumim. He says Malbish Harumim is a bracha that a person does a chet chas v'shalom and he loses his itztala, he loses his garb, his neshama has a garb of kedusha. And when he does a chet, to take away this itztala, this garb, this shining garb, to take away from him. And Mela, he's arum. So a person wakes up in the morning and he does tshuva for his chatoim, for a chet that was plaguing him so much that he lost his itzla. He says Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam Malbish Harumim. He's mechaven for tshuva, and he gets back his garb of kedusha. If a person was not nichshach so badly he didn't lose his garb, what happens is his garb gets verschmutzt and it loses its koyach. So a nice and Le'av Kach, the bracha that to repair for that itzla. That's how it is in Masber. That's just the sides up. And the Rizal says, despite the fact that it's not found in Shas, I think it's in Mesach Seifrim, but it's an emes of bracha, and this is the Pshat Shabbat. So the Ger Tzedek asked the Vilna Gaon famously, do you say with Shem Hashem or not? And supposedly, as he was being taken to be killed, the Gaon called out mit bracha or something like that. Mit Shem Machos, mit Hashem. Suppose that's right. Anyway, so this person, Shmuel Krause, he lived a life of Mesiras Nefesh. If I say so, he was a business, but he was a tremendous doer, and he saw that people, and he saw a very common mistake people make. People open up a lot of svarim and they say, they start seeing phrases they don't understand, right? They see concepts they don't understand. They say, it's too high for me. They close it up and then never open it again. He says, what a shame. He says, everyone has to be exposed to high level, or at least different chalakim of Torah. So he made it his mission to educate people to the basics. You say this that these farms are built on. And this when you open up these farms, it's not totally foreign ideas. So that's what he did. He wrote wrote it. They call it what they call it Hakdama L'Sifrei Chasidus. That's what and they made a bunch of farm. They made on Chanuka, which you bought me last week, and he has He has like a Hakdama B'Klalius. So he so that was his Tachas Hachaim to help raise up Klai. So and he was a shliach neman because he lived it. He lived with on this high level. They just bring just some different stories they bring down about him that that he there were times his parnassus was very schwach, and a guy was once with him in the supermarket on Erev Shabbos, and he's filling up his cart with food. And the guy knew things were stacked by or weren't going so well parnass-wise. He says, how do you are you sure you have what you have what to pay for it? He says, don't worry. He says, the boss will take care. And then what happened? He's sitting there. He's sitting there. As when he gets to the register, still he didn't have money in his pocket to pay for it. And when he got to the register, a guy came in and told him. Let's just find exactly what he told him. The a guy came in and just volunteered to pay for his. It says when it comes to Einik Shabbos, just borrow money. Don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. So he says, love will lie. You borrow my cheshbon. So he says, whoever will lend me the money will be lending me the money, right? As Hashem shliach. And so this person that met him there, he says, fine, I'll lend you the money. But he said, here's the guy, here he is, he's by the register, not knowing that I'm going to walk over to him and ask him if he has money for it. And he says, right? And he says also, another person says of a story. He was in his house. He was a guest by him in his house, and he sees Erev Shabbos. The kitchen's empty, right? There's nothing in the fridge, and he says, "What's going to be with Shabbos?" So he says, so the guy told him, "It looks like you didn't prepare for Shabbos." Vayeishev says, "You don't have money to buy food for Shabbos yet." He says, "Don't worry." He says, "You'll see soon. Everything will be ready for Shabbos." And a little while later, a guy shows up by the door. And he says this Shabbos he has yard site for his father, and he wants this person, this Rabbi Kraus to make a big kiddush in his house, to cover his father's yard site, and he's going to pay for everything for Shabbos. He gave him a large sum of money, and so he was able to see, right, that not only have a person that talks bitachon, but he lives bitachon. That was this person. He suffered terribly by the war. He went through, and he was so ibegigeb, and it brings down a story that he was very sick with typhus, and he hadn't eaten in a few days. And his brother who was with him at the camp managed to get a little water for him. He was too weak to get water for himself. He was stuck. He couldn't get out of bed. And his brother, they brought a little water to give out in the infirmary, just a little bit. He managed to get 1 cup, and he's bringing it to his brother, and his brother says, "Don't give it to me." He says, "See that guy right next? There was a guy right next to him who's mamash unconscious, mamash agaisis." He says, I'm very thirsty, I'm very weak, but that guy, he's mamash about to die." And he says, "Give it to him." And he started pouring it to the guy's mouth, and the guy woke up, and he survived the war. That person, and he ended up being a very service or whatever. Just like they're just being lots of stories how people literally live their lives, every day with Mesiras Nefesh, with total emunah Kadosh Baruch Hu. And that's he had tremendous siyata d'shmaya that his farm taka in this kabel, by a lot of people learn this farm. There is just interesting. I just noticing in the back that they made a zikaron for a grandson of his who was killed in a plane crash in Ukraine 2 years ago. The 3 Bachram, remember they were killed in a plane crash in Ukraine in the summer, like a year and a half ago. It was a plane, a small plane. Yeah, that was his grandson, and his name was Brill. His first name was. Eliezer Brill. I think he was 19 years old. He was learning Eretz Yisrael. He went with a couple of friends to Mekayim Sekadeshim in Ukraine. Ended up being killed in a plane crash. So this is a nishma and so this taka neshama should have an aliyah. He was a bacher that they write a little bit about him. He was a bacher who had sheifis, a bacher who clearly had his nisyonis, and he was mechazik everybody, and he really was someone that was understood what it meant to be mevatel himself, and be mekabel all sorts of hechra zachen, to help him rise above the nisyonis of a bacher living in today's dar, and everyone living in today's dar. He has over here, just interesting, his Hakdama number, with Hakdama Gimel. He gives his third chapter over here is just an interesting, we're talking about Hachana for Chanuka, right? Hachana for Chanuka, I believe is Mesiras Nefesh. There's another Hachana that's written right now before Chanukah, but there's a hachana to the hadlaka itself, and the hachana to hadlaka itself is the hachana of the menorah. The setting up of the menorah is considered a very, very chashuv hachana, and there's three parts of the hachana that you're supposed to be mechab and gvaldik zachin during these hachanas, and maybe something to consider. To maybe everyone could be mahader in the mitzvah ner Chanukah. The emphasis of the mitzvah ner Chanukah. It's meant to be put. The menorah is meant to be 3 tvachim above the ground, and less than 10 tvachim above the ground. So it should be put under 32 inches. The menorah preferably. If you have one of these tall menorahs, tallish menorah, then you really need to just put it on a little stool on the floor, preferably. I'm saying the shilas you put it by window. I'm not sure. But yes, the shilas are. How do you do it? When in our house, especially if you live on a second floor, you're lighting by window. You have no choice but to put it above, even though the bottom of the window may be less than 30 inches. But I'm a suspect how to do it. But if to look for these hidurim is a grois zach. It corresponds to really with the iris that are coming down and coming mamish to the lamata toilam hazeh, and that's why the menorah is put low down, right at 3 tvachim, to be merabes to this is the iris of Chanukah. Normally iris don't come so far down, right? Typically, if you have iris, right, you have to, like Shabbos, you have the olam goes up, and then the iris are given. For the iris to come down all the way down to olam hazeh, that's a chiddush of Chanukah. That in the chayshech, right, the iris come down. Right, that's be'erach the chiddush of Chanukah. The chiddush of Chanukah is that normally Shabbos and Yom Tov you have the olamas go up. Right, so Mela, the Olam Hazeh gets upgraded, and you get exposed to all the iris. Right, so like the lashon is Matana Tavi Yeshli Beis Kanazai, that the Olam goes up to the base Geniza of a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Rashek in Chanukah is the Indian that Kaviyachal Kadosh Baruch Hu bends is Marchin Roshi bends down to be madlik and to reach down into the chayshach of Galas and to be mayor there are over there. That's the Indian of the hadlaka, mamish like closer to the ground, and lamatim asar tvachim, meaning in the bottom 10 spheres, not above it. So he has over 3 achanos. Achanos hapsila, right? That means preparing the wick. There is an Indian to actually spin the wick yourself, right? And if you're buying pre-made wicks, you're not going to be able to have the kavana of hachanas hapsil unless you have an eitzah like this. They give you the wax coated wicks. You could scrape off the wax a little bit. It makes them light easier. Also, you scrape off the wax a little bit. Maybe that would be hachanas. But the idea of thinking when you be meichen the psila, we'll see exactly what the kavana person can have in mind. But there's part hachanas hapsil, getting the wicks prepared. Yitzikas Hashem is pouring the Shem into menorah is another hachana for the mitzvah, and then you have the hadlaka. So he says azay. What is the psila? The psila is roimes on the gufa adam, right? And the fire that is on the psila, right, is connected to the neshama of a person. Right, so when you say that when you're misaken the psila, what you're doing is the kavan is that you have kavana that your guf should be misaken, should be misuken, that it should be zoicha, that your neshama can now be kaini, could be makabel all the R that's coming from the ma'aseh mitzvah Chanukah, because the artist our neshama is plotting for all the iris that come down from every ma'aseh mitzvah. But when you have a guf acher, when you have a guf that's not prepared, right? So that's sort of that deflects the kedusha from the neshama. So taking up psila, the kavan is that you want to be making your guf, that your guf should be able, that when you light the shalheves, which when you put the shalheves, which is the R onto the psila, all the kedusha of the mitzvah should come and permeate your guf with your neshama. He says that the shemen is, we know shemen is merimus to chachma, right? We come up with shemen zayis matzah sham chachma mitzuya. I think Ma'amenacha says, right? Shemen has a shaychus to chachma, and he says when you're pouring the shemen into menorah, first of all, what you do is you pour the shemen on top of the wick. You put the wick in before you put the shemen in. You pour the shemen on top of the wick, which is the mechaven v'shemen al roshcha yachsar, right? Which is that the pasuk in Kahel says that you should never be chaser shemen al roshcha. I mean, you should never be chaser. The chachma of Torah should never be chaser by you. So when you pour the shemen on top of the psila, you be mechaven that I want the chachma to pour onto my head, onto the guf, which is the psila, right? He says another kavan when you're pouring the shemen is that what is the menorah? The menorah is a keli, right? The menorah is a keli. Keli is a midah malchus, right? Which is midas hadin. When you're pouring the shemen into the menorah, your kavanah is that the shemen, which is chachma, which is kula chesed, should be maptik all the dinim of malchus, right, which would allow the malchus to be makabel all the iris. I mean, ultimately for malchus to be makabel and to be mashpia lamata, right? Everything comes through malchus, but first you maptik the din of malchus, and then malchus can be mashpia lamata. So you have in mind when you pour the shemen into the menorah is a kli, the kli is malchus, malchus is din, the shemen is chachma, the chachma should be maptik the dinim of the malchus. So Meli says that how you going to go and you're going to come right, you're going to come home from work and just light the menorah. You need all these achanas, right? And these achanas, even small achanas, a small achana like just making the psila, spinning the wick, putting it into the menorah, pouring the shemen on top of it. These are achanas that a person can really get himself out of the olam hagashmi and connected to olam haruchni. He says that when you pour the shemen into the menorah, another kavan you should have is a shame that is a beis, a yud, and a tes. And if you look in the Siddurim, when it talks about any of the yiratzim that are being said, that misaken the nitzaitis hakadoshim, that a person is chas v'shalom mitzi levatala. So this shame beis, a yud, and a tes is found as one of the shames that are in the kavanos over there. The shame. This is a shame that it's Begamachia 21, which has to do with Shem Eka. Shem Eka is a shame of tshuva, right? That it brings everything back to the way it should be, and this Rosh Hashanah comes from the pasuk Kivi Choshak V'Afalteyu, right? Asagveu kiyada shemi. Kivi choshak v'afateu means that when a person has ava towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu, v'afateu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to take them out, right, from, he's going to save them from whatever nefilus that they had. So he says, this shame, beis, a yud, and a tes is the same letters as shemen in atbash. Shemen in atbash, shin becomes beis, mem becomes yud, and nun becomes tes. When you have kavan, you pour the shemen in. The shemen is not only is it chachma that's being mamtik the malchus, being mechaben for this shame that is a shame of tshuva that has the ability of literally being misaken a person from averes that on the surface would appear that it's a very difficult thing to be misaken. He says there are nikudis he's supposed to be mechaben with this shame. Under the beis, you should be mechaben a kamitz. Under the yud, you should be mechaben a kamitz, and under the tes, you should be mechaben a shava. If you add up the nekudas, right, the way it works is beis, yud, and tes is b'gmatcha eke, 21. Nekudas, the way it works, nekudas is every dot is 10, And a line is a vav. A dot is considered a yud, and a line is considered a vav. So shava is 2 yuds, and a kametz is a yud and a vav. So you have 2 kametzes, is 2 vavs is 12, and the 2 dots is 32, and plus another two dots in the shava of the test. It's 52. And that's big matcha. Shem Havaya, which is known as Shem Havaya Ben. That is the yud. That is yud ke vav ke mili hey, right? And that is that is connected the sphere of malchus. So you mechaven, right? That the Shem Ekeh should be mayor all the way down to Olam Hazeh, and should affect tikkunim all the way in Olam Hazeh. So again, so the kabbalah of the pouring the shemen generally is that the shemen and this shem that we're talking about, the shem of Ekeh, should inspire a tremendous tyra of the person who's being madlik, who's connected the psila and the shemen, and be able to allow him to make the gvaldik tikkunim himself, to mukabel all the iris that come down in the hadlakas ner Chanuka. Guess we'll wrap it up over here. Rabbi say I didn't say anything about Parshas Vayeishev, but as Hashem, one of these days.